who abstain? The minutes from last week passed, 9-0-0. We will now move into approval of the agenda for today's meeting. Do we have any discussion? Senator Novak. I have a motion to add a committee report. Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Carpenter. All those in favor of adding on the committee report, please raise your hand. All those who oppose? And all those who abstain? That motion passes 8-0-1. The new committee report will be added. It's going to be added to the agenda. It will be added in as the last committee in the committee reports section. Do we have any other discussion about today's agenda? Seeing no further discussion, we're going to move into a period of voting. All those in favor of approving the agenda for today, please raise your hand. All those opposed? All those who abstain? Today's agenda passes 9-0-0. We will now move into announcements. We have no announcements. We will move into guest speakers. We do not have any guest speakers. We will now move into executive reports, starting with our president.
Hi, everyone. So tomorrow, Friday, we have our Equity Inclusion Symposium. Please come. It's from 8 o'clock till 2 p.m. It's a little early, but please come. I think they have food, and there's going to be a whole bunch of cool speakers there from chief diversity officers from a whole bunch of different colleges around the state. So, yeah, I yield.
We will now move on to our vice president report. I don't have much to report. We have some more committees starting up. Today, again, at 5 p.m. in the Student Government Conference Room, we will be having our Student Center Committee. And then right afterwards, at 6 p.m., we will be having our Policy Committee. Our first meeting, it'll be, I don't expect it to be a long meeting, just an introductory meeting. And then Safety and Facilities and Food Committee will, they have times planned. They will be meeting the week we come back from break on that Tuesday. Policy is on Thursdays from 6 p.m. to 7 p.m., although it might not be that long. And with that, I'm just going to remind everyone, please make sure, again, you're always checking your emails and your Telegram. And lastly, when we motion to adjourn today, whoever is the person to motion that, please make sure you are adjourning until December 5th, as we do not have a meeting next week. I just wanted to bring that up while I had it on my mind, and with that, I yield. We will now move on to, our treasurer is still excused, so we're now going to move on to our secretary report.
I just have to say, just make sure you do reports, submit your reports to the form. That's it.
Do you yield? I will. Okay, we will now move on to our Chief Justice.
No report.
Our college counsel is also excused. Our advisors.
Hi, everyone. I just wanted to take, is it on? Okay. I just wanted to take a minute to congratulate Chief Justice Nolan on an award that he might have won last weekend, the Community Service Award through the President for the SUNY Student Assembly. So congratulations to him.
We will now move on to our Res Life report.
No report.
No report. Seeing as that concludes our executive reports for the time being, I have a feeling our treasurer might have something to say. We will now move on to our committee reports. Student Center.
Afternoon, everyone. The Student Center Advisory Committee had a very successful second meeting on 11/14/2024 in the SU conference room. During the meeting, we discussed putting in a purchase request for cartridges for the label maker, which we will be using to label equipment as a game room. This will enable us to monitor how quickly the equipment breaks. We also discussed the possibility of a sign for the late night lounge if it doesn't change in the upcoming weeks. Pool Club gave a report that 3 pool cues were broken, but they repaired the tips for them. And then I walked up there yesterday and there's only 2 pool cues left. Or 4. In open forum, we discussed maybe putting a purchase request in for extra pool cue tips for the repairs of the pool cues. Also in open forum, we discussed the possibility of getting someone to repair the felt on the pool tables and the possibility of getting the ping pong tables tightened because they are loose. We will have our third meeting today at 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. in the SGU conference room. This meeting is open to the public. I yield.
We will now move on to Policy Committee. Again, we will be meeting tonight, 6 p.m. to 7 p.m. in the SGU conference room. Should be a relatively quick meeting just to get everyone adapted to Policy Committee, and that is also open to the public. And with that, I yield. We will now move on to our org report, starting with Webb.
Point of order. I'm sorry. I believe that we had a motion.
Oh, I'm so sorry. What is it? Sorry, the UP committee?
The UP Safety Committee.
Okay, you may give your
so-
report. Sorry about that.
Greetings, everyone. My name is Priscilla Novak. And yesterday we had the semesterly committee between UP staff and students. Multiple things were discussed at this meeting. However, the most important ones were lighting on campus, personal student safety, and how we at student government can help with that. The Hilltop Blue Light, the current problem with the chemistry lab's fume hood, unofficial paths being made around campus, and also the problems that happened earlier semester with student government making it so this committee happened way too late in the semester. The first main thing is for the lighting. The lighting around the outer loop has currently been fixed, and despite this, however, the campus center lighting is still broken, and as of time being, is not going to be able to be fixed due to the fact that facilities has not hired and can currently not hire an electrician due to the problems of the New York State not offering a competitive pay rate for electricians compared to most private companies, so people simply do not want to work for the state as an electrician. And the reason why we need an electrician is the lighting for these lights were designed for high voltage lights in the 90s, but since we have moved down to LED lights, the voltage is simply too much for these lights, and it's causing them to break. And so they will not be able to be fixed until the underlying wiring is fixed. Next, University of Priest has requested that us at student government work with bookstore to try and get the bookstore to stock both personal safety buzzers and also pepper spray for student safety. Next, the blue lights outside of Hilltop currently does not have plans to be fixed because it was not even supposed to be there in the first place and was simply a botched, not even just a botched installation, but a botched placement by the contractors hired to put it in, and there's no wires connected to it. While UP is looking into fixing it, it's currently not on the priority since there's also another blue light close to it, and the blue light is going to be expensive, going into $25,000-ish to fix. And they, however, will make it look more obvious, or planning to make it look more obvious that it is currently broken, instead of just having a piece of paper on one side, the blue light saying it's broken. Next, the fume hood currently in the chemistry lab is still broken, and it's currently unknown how much this could be fixed because this is a facilities problem, but it's recommended that, we talk to facilities about this since it means chemistry biology labs cannot continue to run since, well, they cannot have proper ventilation, and it's being recommended that us as students and also professors do not do labs in that room, at least that require a fume hood. And then next, it's been brought up by both staff and also by UP that students are making unofficial paths around campus instead of walking on the sidewalk, and this is deemed dangerous and also unsafe, as these paths cannot be deemed as being properly mandated or set up, and this has caused incidents with students maybe tripping or stuff like that. And they also want us to want to put forward that we should not be making these unofficial paths, actually looking in putting up blockades to prevent people from walking these paths. Sun City's paths are the path that's onto the corner right here that is being used to get from the student center to the parking lot without going around the student center. The path between here and Donovan that kind of goes to the side of Donovan by that path. Any of the paths that exit Donovan into the student center, because people will walk straight instead of going to the side, one or two paths on the side, and etc. And finally, UP wanted to bring up that they want, I know this is something more of a policy committee, but they want student government to do something to try and prevent what happened at the beginning of the semester, or at least to still be able to host this committee earlier in the semester, so that way not only do we have to not worry about it being held so last minute, but any changes that get brought up or the discussion points that get brought up during the safety committee actually have a chance to be implemented by the end of this semester. And that is the conclusion of my report. I yield.
Okay. Seeing as that now that concludes committee reports, we will now move into org reports, starting with Webb.
This went really, really well. We had almost 300 people attend. We gave away all our prizes. Even with the redraws, it was still an amazing event. Thank you all for showing up if you did come. Tonight we have our Winterfest event from 8 to 10 in the SC Late Night Lounge. So please show up. We've got cookies to decorate, snow globes to make, and we have stuffed animals as well. And then on Sunday, we have our New York City trip, which will be our last event for the semester, and we will be back in the spring with our grocery bingo. That is
CFB.
Well,
Media.
Our Jeopardy event this week was a success with about 30 people coming, and I'd like to happily report a big congratulations to the staff of the Factory Times. Our newspaper is now being sent to print. It should be on shelves next week.
Esports.
We hosted Fragfest with great attendance of around 145 people. Gave out all of our prizes. Had really good late night attendance with around 20 to 30 people every night staying over. I just want to remind people, if you did win a prize, it should be at Aux Services. You should have gotten an email for that, so please go pick them up. I yield.
Seeing as that concludes org reports, we are now going to move into old business. We do not have any old business. We will now move into new business, starting with Resolution 2425-15, Preston Candela Senate confirmation. Give me 1 second. Senator Sopin, you have the floor.
Motion to accept Senate Resolution number 242515.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Fisher. You may proceed.
The purpose of this resolution is to confirm Preston Candela as Senator in the Student Government at Utica. We, the Senate of SUNY Poly Student Government at Utica, do hereby resolve whereas the Executive Board has nominated Preston Candela to fill a vacant sophomore senator position within the Student Government at Utica, therefore be it. Enacted, the Student Government at Utica Senate considers and confirms the nomination of Preston Candela as a sophomore senator, therefore be it. Resolved, be it resolved, contractual obligations pertaining to the Senate position shall begin at the conclusion of the Senate meeting in which this resolution is adopted. And be it finally resolved, the Senate of the Student Government at Utica will have an additional member to represent the students of SUNY Poly.
I'm going to ask that the candidate please come to the central microphone and introduce themselves before we do any motions or anything like that.
Hello, I'm Preston Candela.
Introduce yourself to everyone. Give a brief description about yourself.
I'm a first-year NTS major. I'm in a few clubs. I'm in pool club, NTS club. I go to many events around campus. A lot of Res Life events. I went to Fragfest. I went to Casino Night, and I'm excited to possibly become a senator.
All right. Senator Fisher.
To 3 questions, then move into executive session.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Byer. All those in favor, please raise your hand. All those opposed? And all those who abstain. That motion passes 10-0-0. We will have 3 questions and then move immediately into executive session. Senator Novak with the first question.
Previous experiences do you have being a leader or a student leader?
I don't have many previous experiences. I've taken charge in a few group projects before, but in general, I don't have that much experience.
Media with the second question.
As a first year, if you get elected, you'll be representing the sophomore class. How do you plan to connect with those sophomore constituents?
I'm already in like a couple of clubs with a majority of upperclassmen in general, and so I talk to them a lot, and you kind of just like see people around campus, and you can just talk to them, ask them what year they are, talk to them, make sure that they're okay, make sure they're doing okay, ask if they have anything wrong, and kind of just contribute to that.
And Senator Fisher with the final question.
Why do you want to be involved in the student government?
I want to be involved in the student government to help the student body. One of the main problems I think that we have here is the food quality. I think we need better food quality, and that people have gotten sick from the food, which is also not very good.
I don't. No, because that would be considered a fourth question in you motion. So, seeing as that was our final question, we are now moving into executive session. I ask that all audience members Welcome to our Senate. We will now move on to Bill 2425-02, modification of the financial policy. Senator Dobe.
Motion to accept the bill. Motion to accept Senate Bill number 2425-02. The purpose of this bill is...
Not yet.
Oh, sorry.
Point of order. We have to wait for a second. Do I have a second first? Seconded by Senator Fisher. You may proceed.
Sorry about that. The purpose of this bill is to modify the financial policy to be explicit in regarding stipend allocation for the fall elected officers. The justification for this is the stipend allocation could be subject to limitation given to the lack of explicit policy when stipend limitation was not intended for officers elected in the regular fall election. The methods of this are to modify Part G, Article 2, Section 3 of the financial policy to state the following. The exception to stipend allocation is for incoming stipend members elected in the regular fall election. They are allowed to receive their full stipends. This does not apply to special elections nor elections held within the spring semester. Removing Part G, Article 2, Section 3, subsection B, as it is redundant.
We will now open the floor up to discussion. Let's start with Senator Fisher.
I have a question for this bill. My question is, when it says incoming stipended members elected in regular fall election, does that count like elections that are held later? A later fall election, and I yield to our treasurer.
So that would include the regular fall election. We have elections in our fall and our spring, which are just scheduled. They happen every fall, they happen every spring. Sometimes it's necessary to call a special election. This would explicitly not apply to the special elections, it would only apply to those regular elections.
Senator Novak.
Let's get like a brief description of like what effectively this would change. Like, can you explain it to me? Like, I'm 5. I yield to our treasurer.
I don't know if I can do that. But this would essentially, within our financial policy, there is, when people are sworn into their positions, they only receive a percentage of their stipend. This was introduced last year in this current edition of the financial policy. I spoke to the treasurer last year, and we discussed this, and the intention for this limitation was to affect those who were sworn in later in the semester. Because of this, because our elections, our fall elections, started on the later side of things, the people elected in the regular fall election had absolutely no way to begin their terms early enough to work throughout the entire semester and had no way to receive 100% of their stipends. This aims to correct that, as stipend limitation was meant to address those sworn in later in the semester, not those duly elected within the regular election. The election is handled by typically the outgoing administration. The candidates have no say in it whatsoever, and it's not fair to those people who are doing their best to get involved as quickly as possible to be limited. I yield the floor.
Senator Novak.
Isn't it then also unfair to all people who wish to get involved as soon as possible, but they're not able to because, say, for example, somebody tried to apply, like for the Wildcats, like if someone else got the Wildcat Esports president role instead of Zach, they would not get 100% of the stipend, but maybe they were trying to get involved in that since the beginning of the semester, or somebody who tried applying for a position in SGU, got denied, and then reapplied for this position. Basically, what I'm trying to say, isn't this kind of, in a way, a tiny bit of a double standard? I yield.
Our advisors. Our advisor, Jen George.
A couple things for clarification. The structure that outlines the percentage in which an elected position can receive a stipend, or any appointed anybody, has been a long-standing. So that's not new as of last year. That percentage has been around at least 15, 20 years. It's been around a long time. To give it some equality, right? So if someone gets sworn in week 7, they shouldn't get the same percentage of their stipend as someone who's been there since the very beginning, right? I also think that we need to realize that this year was an anomaly. It's not going to happen again on my watch, and hopefully not on anybody else's watch, where everything got really delayed, right? Your election policy states that the process for planning an election actually starts in August, and like is started and executed on the first day of classes. So by week 3, the election is done, senators are in, college council, like anybody who is an elected position that should be on the fall ballot is in by week 4. So I'm not really understanding the thought. I get the thought behind it, but I don't think that it's a necessary edit to our policy. The percentage breakdown is really for those who come later. For if you didn't run for Senate and then you decide, like today, right? Like we had a candidate that we're welcoming into the Senate. That's an appropriate use for a structure that would decrease by percentage. But anyone who's going through the regular process will be in by week 4 and will get 100% of their stipend. So that structure is longstanding, makes sense. This year is an anomaly in that people were not sworn in normal circumstances or at normal timelines. And I think that the Senate in the future should probably, I mean, we had made promises, right? Like we all made promises that you're going to get your full stipend. And I don't think we've done that legislation yet to secure that the people who were sworn in at different times this semester in this situation, it doesn't have to be a policy change, it just has to be an acknowledgement that we're doing something different this semester. I wanted to yield to our other advisor. I think she had some points to make.
I think Jen made most of the things that I was going to say. But I do think that, correct me if I'm wrong, we did do the stipend changes for the people that we did help. I believe so. So with that being said, I think that in cases like that, we did the proper procedure. We did do it through the Senate. Everybody was fine. So to our other advisor's point, to Jen's point, I think that this is probably something that we can correct if it ever happens again, but it shouldn't, and it should never happen again. But I definitely think that we need to really think about this and what we're kind of putting into play, because even if we do have, say we do have an election that is somehow, hopefully not, but somehow late, then they are still working late, right? Do we want to give them a full stipend if they are only working past week 4, right? So we got to think about it that way too. So I'm actually going to yield to our treasurer.
Right, so you're absolutely correct regarding stipends. There was a resolution on the table last week that passed that ensured that all org members who had been working within their positions would receive their full stipends. Within the financial policy, Section 3, there used to be a listed exception. If the fall election ran late, those sworn in would receive their full stipends. The problem is this only addresses the situation in which the election was extended. Hypothetically, if our election didn't receive the 5% needed to move forwards, right, and was extended a week, and instead those sworn in on the 5th week of the semester were sworn in on the 6th week of the semester, according to policy, they would receive 100% of their stipend despite the fact that they would have worked 1 week less. The policy, as it's stated, is written so that if the election need be extended, if people are sworn in late, they receive their full stipend. However, as it is written, that is only if the election is extended. If the election is started late, it doesn't apply, which, frankly, I don't think makes sense because, essentially, going back to the situation I stated before, if the election this year, right, we didn't receive our 5%, it was extended a week, then those sworn in would receive 100% of their stipend, whereas having started a week early, they would not. And that's what this aims to correct, because we need to have clarity on this. If the election being extended is the requirement for those sworn in during the regular fall election to receive 100% of their stipend, it should instead just be acknowledged that, okay, if the elections run late, which they have, it happened this year, I believe elections get extended all the time, this is why that was added in the first place, then it needs to just apply to all elections, because that's essentially what it's stating. We're looking to ensure that those sworn in, because the elections are delayed, be it by not enough voter turnout or because the process started late, receives their proper 100% stipend. If we think that that exception should not exist, then we would need to remove that exception from financial policy entirely, but it was added for a reason, and I think it was a valid reason. I yield the floor.
I'm going to go in order that I've seen hands. So first we're going to go to Senator Novak.
I am going to be fully honest here and still say, in general, I think this entire idea of percentage pay is, how do I properly word this while being school appropriate? Dumb and stupid. because the fact that it only takes account to the fact that the idea that the people who are getting sworn in later in the semester are only getting sworn in because they were not involved previous or did not want to get involved until then. That's not always the case. And yes, part of this is because of the fact that this is specifically affecting me. I was doing advocacy work and getting involved in student government since day one of being back here on the semester. I interviewed our CFB on day one. I got accepted into that role onto CFB, in which then it should have been voted onto here, and that would have happened on the first SU meeting if the president at the time did not then drop Eichner, resign from student government. And then since then, I was involved with doing advocacy for both clubs and student government, resulting in us getting that 5% vote very fast by informing the clubs of why they needed to vote right away. And my advocacy was like one of the big reasons why I reached that 5%, but I'm still only getting 50% of my stipends because the fact that I am now a senator, because the fact that I did not put myself in the election, because originally I wanted to be CFB head, but then when I got denied that, I went straight into then applying to senator, but now I am being punished for still wanting to be involved in SGU after getting rejected from my original position, and this was still going to happen, even like if it's not me, in the future. Say someone else ran for president against Asa and they won. When Asa then would have to then apply at the same time I applied for CFB head to be a senator again, Asa would only get like 60% of his pay despite technically running in the election, and therefore be punished for losing the election. And therefore I think that the idea of this type of stagnated pay has to be looked at more and more on a case-by-case basis, and this entire current system needs to be overthrown because, again, it punishes students who want to be involved and don't make it. It's like punishes them more than just saying, oh, you don't have the position you want, you're not going to get the pay. Screw all the work you did all your semester, screw any advocacy you did in the semester. Maybe you'll get a award at the student gala, but otherwise you're not going to get rewarded for doing all of this hard work, which a lot of times takes you and to do it without like any and who knows how many hours of work. I yield.
Esports.
I'd like to bring us back on track to what the bill is, as this is not about the percentages. I just have a question to either our advisors or to Grayson. Well, more to the advisors. What, in my opinion, this doesn't, if this is enacted and put in financial policy, what is like the negative connotation that would be? Does this not just guarantee all people who are elected would guaranteed get 100% of their stipend? In cases where this semester we have had this, and you're saying, oh, I never want this to happen, but it could happen again and again. There are possibilities where this could happen. I just don't understand why having this in would negatively affect the student body. I'm going to yield to our advisor.
Yeah, so I think that if this is something that SGU as a whole is interested in looking at, I think that we absolutely can, of course. But we really have to think about all the things that come along with it, and everything else that would need to be changed and looked at and just clarifying, because if we hand this to somebody next year, are they going to understand it the same way that we are in this room right now? And of course, there's meeting minutes and things like that, but sometimes it doesn't capture everything. So I just think we need to like look at the wording of it a little bit more. Maybe that would be a good job for probably budget or policy committee to take this back and like, okay, let's really take a look at this and figure out how do we actually want this to be phrased in a way that we can hand it to somebody else and they would clearly understand it. So that would be my recommendation. I'm not saying it can't happen. I think that there's a lot that would go into it, but it might just be a larger project. I yield.
Treasurer.
I have a question for our advisor then. The need for that clarity, and I guess what is the negative of passing this as opposed to and later amending it with the financial policy?
have a response to this as well. I think it sometimes, and not necessarily this, but a lot of times when we're doing these quick, responsive, reactive, they feel like a little bit like Band-Aids, and people have really great intentions of saying, we'll go fix it later. We'll do it now, and then we'll go fix it later. And I've seen time and time again, with no ill will or bad intention, it just gets overlooked. Like, we already did that part, and what's next on the list? I think a really smart approach could be to take this information to Budget Committee and have it included and wrapped up in all of the changes so that when you bring the changes here, it's one large document, we're tracking edits, we're knowing exactly where the changes happen, and it's not overlooked. I think it might need a little bit more work. I'm not opposed to it. I think there's thought behind it that might make sense, but I do think it needs a little bit more work to be as comprehensive and as clear as we want it to be. So I think Budget Committee and or policy makes probably the most sense, but if Bailey had anything to add.
Yeah, I guess to add on to both points, there's nothing negative about the actual legislation. It's just pretty much like we want to, again, clarify that wording part. So just making sure that we're being fully comprehensive and looking at the holistic view of the financial policies, if that makes sense. I'm going to yield to the treasurer.
Clarify at least my position on it. I'm not at all opposed to modifying the wording, right? I wrote this. I'm not fantastic at writing policy. I have little experience with it, and this is just what made the most sense to me at the time. But again, everyone in this room, unless we get any future senators, all the members of this room who are a part of Budget Committee are going to be there. They're hearing this conversation, they're hearing these thoughts, and I really doubt it'll be overlooked because any more than any other part of financial policy, Budget Committee, meeting this Saturday, by the way, 3 p.m., be there, be square, is going to be looking over the entirety of financial policy. There's 44 pages, a lot of white space, and we're going to be looking over it section by section, every single line, right, every single sentence. And once we've done it, if we have enough time, we're going to go over it again. And I think amending it now does not mean that we're necessarily going to skip over it later. If anything, I think it's something, now that we've made note of this, we've made note that we want to change it, that's specifically something that we know we want to address. This weekend at Budget Committee primarily is going to be going over the financial policy, going over the budget and saying, what do we want to change? What do we need to go over? What do we need to reword, fix, update, whatever it may be? And we've just noted now first thing, Section 3, Part G of Article 3.
So I guess my last thought about all of it too is it's by passing this, we're not making a note of it, like we are changing it. It's not like something that we can like just not do at this point because now passing this would be like our policy now. But I guess I have another question about it too. So since we already did the stipend allocations for those that were affected by the circumstances of this year, what would be the benefit in doing it now versus waiting until the financial policy is a comprehensive document? I'm going to yield back to Grayson.
Sorry, that was a couple different things. So yes, it would become policy, just as the entire rest of the 11th edition of the financial policy is policy. That's the policy we have right now. That doesn't mean we can't change it. That doesn't mean we can't look at it. But making a note, I just meant that, okay, we know that we have to address this section, just like we probably have to address a lot of other sections within our financial policy, and it's something that we can go over, we can fix. That's what I meant by making a note of. I didn't mean that, oh, we're going to change this, we're going to make this change. It's a section that we have to look at because we want to change it, despite the fact that we have just changed it, if that makes sense. Regarding the reason behind doing it now, those stipends were allocated planning for 100% both fall and spring semester. That was the understanding, and functionally that 25% would just go back into reserves. We're looking to ensure that those elected within the fall election receive fair compensation for the work they've been doing this semester. I'm going to yield to our Senator Pro Tempore.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but this legislation largely seems to be like an add-on, sort of like a safety net to prevent the situation that we voted on last week to happen again. And also, I'm kind of confused about the wording here and how it can be considered unclear. Reading what's highlighted right now, to me personally, it seems very clear. So if I could have some, like an explanation as to where the disconnect is in intent and the structure of this policy, I yield to the floor.
Senator Novak.
I just want to point out that the bill we voted on last week was only for organization members and does not affect anybody in student government or was in the election. This bill would basically be doing what we did with the bill last week, but instead of it making it just for org members, it makes it now for SGU members too.
Oh, to me? Okay. I did just want to highlight, it may be, this is just my very personal opinion, as I was an elected member, as was my entire e-board mostly, and a few notable senators. We will not be receiving our full stipend, whereas the org, members and the org heads would be receiving their full stipend. I just find it a little funky that we wouldn't be getting our full stipend, but we're the ones that swore them in. I'm not complaining about my stipend. It's fine. I don't care. Whatever happens, happens. I didn't write this bill, but I just don't think it's fair. And I yield.
Senator Byer.
I just want to ask for clarification. This is regarding future stipends. The stipend for this fall semester. That's all clear. This is all for the future, correct? I yield to our director.
No, clarification. The way it's written, if you look at Section 5 duration of the bill, this bill will become effective as of the start of the 2024 fall semester, so we're essentially backdating it. I yield to Ms. Mertz.
One of the concerns from our advisor was that we're doing this a little too fast. If you can correct me or not, I just want to confirm this is a bill, so it's not going to be voted on this week, which gives them a week to go to budget committee to think about this and continue, because it feels like we're going around in a circle about this. So I think, personally, as someone who's not affected by this bill and has been in the government last semester to this semester, this is an unprecedented thing that happened. I don't expect it to ever happen again. And as Jen said, it's not supposed to happen again. So I don't see where the problem would be bypassing this if it happens again. It doesn't seem like it changes Section 3 of financial policy. It just broadens it a little bit to include all situations compared to this very one specific situation. I'm going to yield to our advisor.
Can I speak for both of us? I think we're both a little bit confused on the duration. We can't backdate legislation it would have to be effective today or forward. So you can say, I'd like to be effective starting in the spring semester of 2025. I don't believe that that's an option to backdate it to the beginning of this fall semester. If anyone can provide any findings, if you guys have it in Robert's rules or something, but I've never seen a backdated legislation to retroactively approve something. No one was elected in that period. To say it was effective when we didn't even have a government is really tough. There was no one in place to that. I don't think we can do that. I'm not trying to I'm not trying to find anything, but I don't think that you could do that. Don't think it's inappropriate. I think it's not best practice to backdate things to benefit the group that's here now. When we do stipend increases and we look at things that are going to impact ourselves that we're voting on, we try not to impact our current selves. But we can't backdate. I yield.
Do we have any additional discussion on the bill? Senator Velez.
Where exactly that says we can't backdate it, so why bring up that point?
Do you yield? Okay, esports.
If it was designated to start today, why wouldn't this affect the people who were elected in this election? Like, why would it? Like, can someone explain like why it just would not? Since financial policy would be in effect, this wouldn't affect them anyway. I'm going to yield to Grayson. So, like, if it, like, let's say we change it, they wanted to backdate it just to make sure that everyone that was affected by it gets affected. Why would they not get this new policy today? Like, why was it backdated to the beginning of the semester compared to just today? If you can clarify that. Going to yield to Grayson.
So to that regard, that is a convincing argument. Frankly, it's not one that I considered. My assumption was that regarding stipend allocation, that would be
Effective.
you would be using the policy at the date of the swearing. I guess nothing within financial policy stipulates that that must be the case. It's a gray area. I don't think we have definition one way or the other regarding, because again, this is an unprecedented situation. I don't think it's really come up before. I'm going to yield to Senator
Novak.
I'd like to point out, first of all, this is not technically new legislation. This is the amending of previous legislation. And under Robert's rules, you can backdate amendments of something that was previously adopted. If a motion, if our meeting is actually on the internet, if a motion was passed at your meeting, there's another approach you can take. You can move to amend something previously adopted. Different requirements for this motion to pass, depending on whether it was made at the same meeting or whether previous notice is given is considered at a future meeting. In this case, the original motion is still valid, but you're proposing to change something about it. This is the way, for example, you can change the minutes that were previously adopted. Any member can motion. An example it puts down is I move to amend the motion we passed this morning by striking the number 4,000 and inserting the number 8,000. I yield to the floor.
Okay, our president.
I just want to know, so if we were going that route with it, we would have had to call up the original bill that introduced the 11th edition of the financial policy. This is just amending the policy with a brand new bill. We would have to bring up that bill again and all of its entirety at that point, which is very different from what we currently have now. So I don't think that'd be a valid approach. I do appreciate you brought it up, but I don't think it's valid. And I yield.
Senator Byer.
Yes, it is. I yield to the floor.
Do we have any additional discussion on the bill on the table? Seeing no further discussion, we are not able to vote on this because this is a bill. So with that, I'm gonna ask one more time. Do we have any more discussion on the bill at hand? Before we move on, does anyone wish to entertain a motion to table this? We don't have to table this? Perfect. Okay, with that, we're going to move on to swear-ins. So if you're being sworn in today, including Preston, that's you, please come to the center of our horseshoe now.
Oh my.
Pretty much. You're the pen provider. You're the chief officer choir. All right. Once you guys are done being sworn in, please sign this paper before going back to your seat.
I'm waiting for Matt to leave. All right, please raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name. Will faithfully uphold the Student Government at Utica Constitution and carry out the duties of state your organization and position to the best of my ability and will represent the students of SUNY Poly in a fair and unbiased manner. All right, congratulations. Oh my god, oh my god, oh my god.
Newly sworn in members are signing the papers. We will now enter open forum. Starting off open forum will be Senator Novak.
Anyone who is not in, for anyone who is in the Wellness and Inclusion committee, please respond to my telegrams. I have asked by multiple times for people to fill out the form for putting out what times they are available for Wellness and Inclusion, and recently I have asked if people can do 2 p.m.s on Friday, and I have not gotten a response from every single person who is on this committee, and I'd like to get this started, especially since the staff want this started, and we have yet to get it started due to people just not responding.
Media.
I guess I just have a question. Like, I don't know if this is for the exec board or student committee, but is there a plan to use the old Title IX office for anything?
Our advisor.
Thanks.
Our treasurer.
First off, I'm sorry I was in late today. I wanted to just mention CFB and hopefully just about every single club treasurer, every single club president, as well as some of the org treasurers have received treasurer training. Hopefully this will ensure some smoother processes moving forward with regards to purchase requests and general finance accounting. I also wanted to reiterate that Budget Committee is meeting this weekend, Saturday, 3 p.m., SG conference room, be there, be square. I yield to
Our audience member.
The newspaper. I just wanted to say, first thing, senators, you have to wear your mics, man. We don't have handheld for everyone, so if you don't wear your mics, we can't pick you up on the mic. Second thing, so the attitude towards media lately has been a little crazy, so I just want to ask that everyone watch the way you're speaking to each other. At the end of the day, we're all friends, and even if you're not, we're people. So we're all doing our best, and I feel like media does a lot of the orgs do. So just when you're talking to us about things, for your events or for these meetings, we're trying our best as well, and realistically, Rachel is in charge of us. So if you feel the need that we're not doing a good job, please go to Rachel. Thank you. I yield.
Senator Sopin.
We are having a food committee meeting in the CC. 1 to 1:30 is going to be only students. If you don't want to talk to Paula, John, oh, I thought you said something. Oh, if you don't want to talk to Paula, John, or Dennis, who's the head chef, you can come in, talk to me, talk to Priscilla. We will be there from 1:30 to 2. That's when Paula, Dennis, and John, we're all going to go in, take a walk around the CC, and actually talk about what problems you have. We cannot do anything with just the food's bad or this and that. I would also like to reiterate, everyone here deserves respect. It doesn't matter what happened, staff still deserves respect. Anybody caught cursing out, fighting, or throwing things at staff, you will be turned in. Thank you very much.
Do you yield? I didn't hear. Okay, our treasurer.
I just want to add on, direct deposit forms are up here. If you weren't here last week, I don't want to see these straight to auxiliary services. If you are planning on doing direct deposit, please try and get these forms into auxiliary services by tomorrow. Regarding stipends, stipends will hopefully be processed the week after Thanksgiving break. That's the timeline we're looking for. No promises, but that's what it's looking like. If you want one of these, take them. These are for all stipended members. That's senators, cabinet members, org members. I think that's everyone. I yield.
Our president.
I just want to echo media a little bit. If you don't know how to work one of the mics, just please ask them. They don't bite. They're not scared of you. Please just ask if you don't know how to wear them. They'll help you out. They want to help you out. They want it to work. And I yield.
Our advisor.
Everyone saw my face because I can't hide things very well. Are people having things thrown at them?
From Paula, I've heard that we do have students who, I know it takes a long time for the CC. You're going to be waiting there for a while. There's a lot of things. People have thrown fries, thrown things on the floor. There have been numerous events where students cuss out staff, which shouldn't happen at all. They're here to help you.
Yes.
These were news to me because I'm always used to hearing things about from students, but this meeting we're not having a meeting to yell at Paula or yell at auxiliary services. Yeah. This is a meeting for each party to air out the complaints they're having. So you will receive complaints about how students are treating the staff on campus. If you want better food, please show better respect and manners towards the people serving your food. I yield. I yield.
Senator Novak.
I just want to quickly ask our female members of this, staff, SGO and all that. Has anyone else, I'm not sure if I'm just going crazy or not, but has anyone else noticed in the CC getting less food than male students? Because I've swear there's been multiple times in which I've been in the CC and I've gotten, I've had a male student in front of me and a male student behind me, and I will get less food than both male students. And I just want to make sure it's not just, some weird thing I encountered once or twice, and, that I'm not going crazy before I bring it up at the food committee. I yield.
Esports.
Hello, I'm a big male. I'm pretty sure I've gotten the smallest chicken breast of all time from the CC, so I think I think they just are very inconsistent with their portion sizing. I also wanted to say I had a meeting with Paula, Dennis, and John. It may not seem like they care. They definitely do, and they definitely want to improve. So they've told me that to say it to you guys. If you see them in the CC and you have a problem, please go to them. Please talk to them. They are available. They are there all the time. If it's good, if the food is good, please also tell them. They are trying, and it may not seem like it, but I just want to reiterate, they are trying to help, and sometimes things slip through the crack, and your experiences should not be minimized. But the best way to get it fixed is to tell someone, and it is to tell them immediately, not wait. There's a lot of things that they do that the sooner you say something, the faster they can get it fixed. I'm going to yield to Grayson.
Just echoing that, Wildcat Hospitality has a survey regarding dining. I know the signs are everywhere. If you've seen them once, you've seen them a thousand times. You just sort of walk by it. Fill those out. Talk to people. It might seem obvious to you, but it's not necessarily obvious to them. Reach out. Be respectful. Please be respectful, and just voice your concerns, because that's the way things change. I'm going to yield to Senator Sullivan.
Just to piggyback off Treasurer, if you're going to fill out a survey, please add your contact information, a name, or an email, something, because Paula can't reach out and ask you personally what happened if there's nothing to connect. That's it.
Our president.
Where are the nameplates? They seem to be not here. I yield.
Senator Novak.
Also, since it was also mentioned up, I think in general we have a problem with attitude/manners on this campus, because I also noticed yesterday at casino night, there was a lot of rude people in the audience when raffles were going on, when it should not have been, and I heard a lot of, as I was next to this big group, there was this big group of 18 guys who, whenever they didn't win anything, would just start cussing out and making rude comments towards the Wildcat Events Board staff. And I just think in general we need to, I don't know if it's something that we can really change or do anything about, but maybe trying to have some sort of way of doing it, because it's not really appropriate. And I don't know, at least I know I don't want to hear some guy having a hissy fit because he didn't win a raffle ticket for AirPods. I yield.
Our audience member.
Hello, I would like to add on to Priscilla's story because I was at casino night, and when I was walking back, I was walking through Oriskany, and when I was walking through, I heard someone screaming at the top of their lungs about how big the raffle system was, and just being really loud and obnoxious during quiet hours. So I think this is a general problem across campus that does need to be
Web.
To Reagan's point, every year we get the rigged problems. I had a message from my friend last night. They were like, this seems rigged. Why'd you pick this person to pull the iPad? I'm like, because it's her senior, and she's a senior. It's her last event. It's something fun for her to do. People are like, you're favoring her. I'm like, y'all, it's just my staff pulling tickets. I can't really help with the rigged stuff. The rowdiness of the crowd, that's also a thing that happens. They just get really hyped about it. They curse and stuff. I'm sorry if they say anything offensive. I really try and make sure that my staff watches out for that. The best I can say is that we will try and have better rules on our casino night next year. There's some rules we need to add about stuff about rowdiness, especially towards the tickets, because the recount stuff, we did have to do a lot of redraws, and we need to up our rules on that to make people understand that they need to have patience. So I yield.
Yeah, and I think, well, there probably are improvements that could be made. Casino night, I was there last night. It was awesome. It went really well, I thought. So just, round of applause for Webb for hosting that event. I know it's classic. I yield.
Do we have any other discussion for open forum? Media.
December 5th.
Do I have a second? Seconded by Senator Fisher. All those in favor of adjournment? All those opposed? And all those who abstained? That passes 9-0-1. We are adjourned at 1:45 p.m.